Hi guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the In the Hub podcast, brought to you by Playerbox Technology UK. Today, I'm speaking with Chris Lavin, Chief Technology Officer of OneConnext. Chris is an incredibly experienced systems integrator with a wide range of knowledge in the video and video delivery landscape. To date, Chris has managed and implemented playout and delivery systems for over 300 different channels and broadcasters. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the In the Hub podcast, Chris. How are you doing today?
Very well, man. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you, mate. And it's, I think we've been trying to get you on for a little while now.
I'm in high demand as of these days.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we'll just get stuck straight in then, Chris. We've got some good questions here.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, Chris, before we actually get started in the kind of the meaty questions, could you just kind of fill us in on how you came to be involved in the broadcasting industry?
Absolutely. So my roots are in IT. So, I'm an IT guy from way back, programmer, white hat type hacker, all of those things.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I've done some interesting things in my early career, but leaving that alone and moving forward. So I really got involved in the broadcast industry as a matter of when the media started converging, right? So the transition from tape to file-based workflows is where my expertise started coming into play to help serve the for lack of a better term, the ignorant in the IT space for this type of transition. I mean, a lot of these old engineer guys, they had no roots in IT networking, that kind of thing. So I kind of got sucked in, and the reality of who I am is that I'm an opportunist. People like to use the word entrepreneur, but the reality is I'm an opportunist. If it's legal, if it's moral, I'm going to do it. And it makes me money. I'm going to do it, right? So that's what sucked me in. I got sucked in by the vacuum of the lack of knowledge in that industry.
And it was interesting you brought up, obviously, these kind of hardcore tech guys who had no roots in this kind of digital world. Did you find they were kind of really reluctant to change as well? Were they?
So here's the reality, right? So again, I'm an entrepreneur and pretty much have always worked for myself. So the reality is there's something in the broadcast industry where if you're an engineer and you always did what you always done, and it's always been successful, you didn't get fired if things went awry. If you try something new and things go awry, you've got a chance of getting fired. So again, being the entrepreneur that I am, I realized early on that there would have to be something that drove this change. And what drives change? It's money, right? It's money. So the reality is if you could go to the CFO of a company and prove to him that he could become more efficient or leading edge, whereas he offers something that his competitors don't have, that drove the engineers to make the changes, because now the responsibility of making those decisions could be pushed up, right? So the CFO made us do this; it didn't work; it's his fault. I haven't had one of my best character assets and flaws is that I don't fail, right? At any cost, I just don't fail.
That's a good quality.
So as a result of that, well, it depends. Sometimes people say you can't let go, right? So that's been the driving force to motivate the engineers to make the change. And because I have early on, I was into ham radio, and I understood RF and I understand broadcast. I was able to at least start talking the languages of the old school engineers, and where I was ignorant, I'm one of those people that I don't allow my ego to get in the way, because I found that most people, if you're honest with them and say, I don't understand and I need some help, I'm more than willing to help you. And you build a bond that way. So that has been how I've overcome those roadblocks to success.
Yeah, and I think I kind of already know what might be the answer to this question, but is there something that you can boil it all down to, like one particular kind of thing that has kept you hooked in the broadcasting industry? Because, as a kind of, I want to say, entrepreneur, constantly looking for kind of new opportunities, why is it broadcasting that's kept you hooked?
Because back to that whole engineering mentality, when you're dealing in the engineering space, generally engineers do what they do to have a successful outcome. They don't look outside the box, right? So one of the things that has kept me hooked is just my career path specifically, because I'm in a lot of those situations where this guy works in this box, that's all he does. This guy works in this box, that's all he does. This guy works in this box, that's all he does. But this guy over here is solving a problem that this guy has. So I'm exposed to his solutions so that when I come over here and this guy has that problem, I'm a hero.
I love it. So, yeah. It's a great way of doing things.
It's that solving people's problems and issues that really has kept me hooked. Right, I'm that guy. I'm that guy that really thrives on making those little successes.
So yeah, obviously, Chris, you will have kind of witnessed a lot of change within your career within broadcasting, and obviously play out especially. Obviously taking on roles as chief technology officer and CTO at various companies. So how do you keep on top of the constant change within our industry? And I say that because when I came into this industry, one of the first things that struck out to me was every day there is a new technology that some people are paying a lot of attention to. A lot of people are talking down and saying it will never become a big thing. So how have you kind of stayed on top of that change, but also selected the ones that you think are actually going to be beneficial?
Again, back to my roots as an entrepreneur and an opportunist, right? So there's always the industry buzzword that's happening, right? Let's go back to 3D TV. It was this big, everybody had to have 3D TV. I've got 2 of them. I think I've watched 1 3D movie at home. But that's been the way of a lot of the consumer-driven stuff. A lot of the changes that I have, the biggest change or the biggest impactful change that I see is back to, file, transition from tape to file-based workflows. The cool thing about that, right, is that transition of the stereotypical or the old stereotypical brick and mortar type broadcast facility. It's really become more and more to the wayside where people are virtualizing, going to the cloud, playing out from the cloud. And the absolutely wonderful thing about that is it's given access or a more level playing field like the World Wide Web did for, against my small company, against IBM. We're only limited by our creativity, right? So now that the barriers to entry are not these $100,000 playout systems you used to get from, Avid Airplays and all that stuff. Now, economically, a small guy with some creativity and has the ability to create content can get in the middle of the mix and start putting out his own content. Bring in, i.e., YouTube and several other form media or platforms for media to get out there. And boom, now all of a sudden we've got, kids in Miami that are 20 years old making millions of dollars on YouTube. Yeah. So all of these things are dynamic. And let me tell you that I'm very egotistical, right? I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm very egotistical. I'm a self-proclaimed expert. And what happens to me every year or up until this year is I walk into NAB and realize how small I am in the world of podcasts, right? Yeah. And it's always this humbling experience. So the reality is this: there are several avenues with which I get exposed to new technologies. It's, again, back to me being an integrator, going into different facilities, seeing how other people are solving problems. But then there's that NAB, man, where you go in there and people are putting their wares out. And I'm drawn to the tech, man. I'm a geek at nature, and I'm drawn to the tech and the cool new ways to do things. And the last one of the other personality flaws that I have is that I'm a gambler, right? So I'll go in there, and man, there's this guy in England who's just a great guy, and I met him when he was a kid, and he wrote an encoder. It was called OBS, Open Broadcast Systems, right? So I love this kid, Karen, and I watched him grow up in the industry and built a multi-million-dollar company. But when he was just one guy writing the software, I jumped on board and jumped on the wave very, very early on, and we've been partners ever since. I work with him on a day-to-day basis. And he's there, based in London as well.
Yes.
So yeah. I forget what the question was. Oh, and that's how I came up with the concentration in the industry. I just exposed myself.
Yeah, it was quite a convoluted way of me getting around to it, but I think you answered it really well there, Chris. And honestly, I think, like you said, obviously gambling nature as well, that all fits into being this kind of entrepreneurial person and having to take some risks. And like you said, you don't fail, Chris, which is always a good quality.
Exactly.
So I know it would be quite hard to kind of single out a project here, but So you can name multiple ones if you wish.
Man, I got one.
You have got one.
I got one.
That might be our first ever guest who is okay with favoritism, basically, and singling one out. Which is honestly, Chris, that's made my day. Have there been any? Okay, let's get to it. What has been your favorite kind of project?
Okay, so not necessarily my favorite, but my most. That one project where you go, man, I did that. I did that. So I was involved in you're in the UK, so yes. This is not first nature to you. So let me explain to you. The NCAA is a national collegiate conference that oversees all college sports. There is a company based in at the time they were based in north of Orlando, Florida, and I was based in Orlando at the time. And this company literally ingests every football, soccer, every college event played. And what they do is they cut highlights for this. They do statistics. They do all of this stuff. This is massive project. So on the weekend there'd be 400 or 500 games come in on a weekend. So I completely designed the complete broadcast infrastructure, utilizing IP, right, to bring all of these games back to a centralized location for them to do these highlights and these edits. And I developed the technology so that literally by the time the game was done, you were able to search to the play for every play that happened in the game. They were doing these live ingests, and this is 10 years ago, man. We were doing live ingests and live edit while stuff was coming in to push to the web and to their portal, which I'm not going to name because it's copyrighted. But they had this web-based portal where news outlets could come in and pull down 1 or 2 minute highlight clips, so that they could go to broadcast literally at the conclusion of the game. It was an immense project. I did it single-handedly, and it was successful, man. And I'll never forget that first weekend. I literally worked 2.5 days without sleep at the launch. And it was the most physically devastating and at the same time psychologically rewarding launch I've ever been on. And so that's my I don't want to say biggest achievement, but the most heartfelt, grasping of in that chess success that I've had.
And it doesn't always need to be the kind of biggest, most money made achievement, does it? It's got to be that one that kind of stimulates you as a person.
But as a result of that company sold for over $100 million. I got none of that.
To think that was 10 years ago as well, that started is just insane to me.
Exactly.
To even overcome that mental hurdle of thinking, right, can we do this? Let's start doing it. Do you know what I mean? That's incredible, honestly. Exactly. So Chris, just kind of moving alongside that, I read an article lately. I think you were being interviewed, or it might have been a press release or something like that. And it stated that you've kind of managed or implemented playout and delivery systems for well over about 300 different channels or broadcasters during your career.
That's accurate.
So I guess my question is, does kind of systems integration, as an activity, as a process, does that ever get easier for you? Or are there always, with every new project, different challenges coming in that kind of throw you aside?
Well, one of the things that is common in this industry is people, right? And users create issues, right? So I can create a nearly quote unquote perfect or bulletproof scenario, or as I like to say, I can make something idiot resistant, right? Because you can't make things idiot proof, because every time you make things idiot proof, they build a better idiot, right?
Exactly.
So, the amazing thing is really the issue as we develop new technologies and implement new rollouts. It's always the people. It's like you can't really cover everything that's going to happen. So my biggest challenge is that human piece of what's happening. And I have, again, the business ownership mentality. So I have that. And so when you transition the care of a playout or a broadcast chain to somebody that's just collecting a paycheck at minimum wage or something, the same level of concern and care is just not there. And so that always becomes a factor. With regards to the technology, man, the technology is always ever evolving, and this world has become small. right? This world has become a very small place, and we deal internationally with vendors and software developers. And there's stuff in the U.S. that's very distinct to the U.S., such as closed captioning and other standards, that the Norm Act and all that stuff that we have to be conscious of, that doesn't exist in other parts of the world. So there's always that challenge sometimes when a vendor releases a new product, and I'm not going to name any vendors at this point, but they release a new product or an upgraded product, and they forget about that, right? They forget about our closed captioning necessities or the things that we've got to be conscious of here in the U.S. So that is the struggle, and then there's always the platform, right? Microsoft has made it impossible for you not to update their platforms, right? They've implemented technology in their operating systems that always continues to update. And I understand the mentality behind that. It's to protect the operating system, protect the systems from being hijacked by third parties and hackers and the people that want to do nefarious things. But at the same time, in their angst or in their strive to make things bulletproof, they destroy my products. So yeah, those are the biggest challenges: is people and the evolving technology, believe it or not, that creates issues for us.
So moving to OTT as a topic, and it's one that you obviously have quite a lot of experience in as a kind of delivery mechanism. Seeing OTT, over the top video, kind of go from what it once was, thought of as quite risky, a bit up in the air, literally, to now, it's gained a lot of trust, hasn't it, and a lot of kind of reliability, especially over the kind of last decade, as a way of getting, standard definition, high definition, even ultra high definition content out to people. Do you think OTT still kind of has a case to make to its doubters, or do you think it has now solidified itself as, a really credible way of delivering content for the future of broadcasting?
Let me answer that question in a very peculiar way. So where you sit in the world, the concept of OTT is complete. And we had an OTT platform that we partnered with somebody and spun up. And really the OTT platform was to add a left hand to the right hand that our core business is, which is video transport. But let me answer that in this. United States OTT is brutal. Right. There's very few key players, and they're large players. Like, I've got this new home. I'm living in, I've got the second home. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, and I don't have cell phone service, but I have a gig of internet to my cabin. So I have AT&T OTT platform on my smart televisions. Right. And it's pretty good. It's got its issues. Those are the type of players that dominate the OTT market here in the United States. In the rest of and by the way, the United States, excuse me, everybody, but we're the only idiots in the world that pay $300 a month for television. You go over to Eastern Europe, you pay $25 and you get a gig of internet. I'm exaggerating a wee bit. You pay $25, right? You get 100 channels, a gig of internet, and people go crazy if there's a commercial on those paid channels that you pay for, right? So there's two different OTT personalities, let's say. The United States, where it's dominated by big players, and then the rest of the world, we're back to that barrier to entry that was originally once there, which was cost to those little players that have got content, man. I know of hundreds of Bollywood type channels that are out there that are distributed internationally, but for OTT they wouldn't be. And there's a whole bunch of very international content that's available to pay people that have been expatriated to other countries, where they get to see that taste of home. Not for OTT, they wouldn't be able to do that. So OTT has got its place, man, and I'm happy to say that it's growing. But once again, the American ignorance, for lack of a better term, and we're like sheep. Who pays $300 in the world for television but Americans? and we watch commercials. So, I mean, it doesn't happen elsewhere. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it is interesting you said that, and I hadn't really thought about it until then, just how different it is. And me watching shows, obviously based in the UK, and I was hearing cable, and stuff like that, and that kind of, it was just a wholly American thing at that point, and it always just seemed so far out of reach, and like you said, really high cost. But so no, it isn't interesting comparing them against each other.
Exactly.
So just moving quickly on to OneConnext, for anyone who doesn't know already, what services do you guys provide as a company?
Okay, so OneConnect's primary business is transport, right? So initially we had wanted to become a disruptor in the satellite industry. The reality is that was not smart. That was not smart at all, because we immediately gained some very large enemies.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So back to the mindset of allowing the small companies to come in and play with the big companies. What OneConnect has done is we partnered with the satellite transport companies, right? So in the international broadcast world, if you understand how satellite works, if you get content in, let's say, Beirut, Lebanon, and you want to broadcast in the United States, you have two uplinks that you need to deal with. You need to get over to the United States, and then you via satellite, and then you need to get put up for distribution on the continental US. And this is just one example. So initially, like I said, we wanted to compete against the cable companies against the satellite companies, because we were exceedingly inexpensive compared to a satellite uplink. We've learned that if we work with them and we deal with that first international link, right? So that you don't need that first $35,000 a month link. Get the video transported from Beirut, Lebanon. I keep this as an example because we have a music channel there. Get it transported to the United States for continental U.S. distribution. The barrier to entry is reduced by $30,000 a month for that small company that wouldn't have been able to do it.
Which is huge, isn't it, to a small company? Yeah, 100%.
Wouldn't be able to do it.
Obviously we talked about those kind of small companies that can get on this level playing field. Who do you find your most common type of customer is at OneConnect, and why do you think this is?
Well, so we've evolved. Initially, we were 24/7 live play, but we've got a technology that is so robust that we're actually faster than satellite. Like I don't know how else to put it. So we are able to deliver video with lower latency than you can on satellite. So we have moved into spaces, and this was helped by COVID, believe it or not, because when COVID was first locked down, sporting events stopped, right? So one of the mandates when sporting events started coming back was small footprint rather. So I could be on site, let's say, or one of my guys could be on site with a 1RU encoder, and we could do everything that was being done in an ENG sat truck. One guy, one encoder replaces 6 guys, right? So as a result of that, we got brought into the tennis channel. The tennis channel, there was the first live matches for the tennis channel were actually done in West Palm Beach, because there are a bunch of rich people that are there, and they have these private tennis courts where they were holding these events for tennis matches, and we were able to broadcast them and get them back to tennis channel and broadcast nationally. And it was like, holy cow. Well, so that really got us into the arena, exposed in that tier 1 sports, because they realized that we were faster than satellite. So then what happened from there is we went into, as COVID released, they were brought in sat trucks, right? Because engineers had never been fired for doing what they've always done, and it worked. So they were comparing our signals side by side with a sat truck, and realized that A, the video quality was higher coming through our stuff, and B, it was showing up before the satellite. So they immediately started adopting us, and we're significantly cheaper. It was significantly cheaper to do a transport with us versus, renting a sat truck. We don't have broadcast windows where we've got to schedule sat time and all that stuff. So bam, we got in the sports market. And since then, we're in CBS Sports, we're in CBS Interactive. Every college basketball game that you saw over the past year on NBC Sports Network was brought to you by OneConnect, right? So we have everything from those inexpensive guys that want to get on the air. We've also dealt with tier 1 shopping networks. We have them 24/7. We have a lot of religious channels that we deliver to Dish and Direct. We deliver to the endpoints for them as far as other MSOs. So we have a wide gamut of customer base. Everywhere that they previously used satellite, they can use One Connect.
Yeah, and I've got to say, looking at the website and everything, it really is quite an impressive kind of client portfolio for you guys. And, with all that kind of excitement going on, and as it has in the past year, where do you see One Connect progressing to in the future? Can you even see that far ahead yet, or are you just kind of rolling with it as it comes?
Absolutely, 100%. There is some names I can't discuss, but let me tell you what we're doing without divulging who they are. So those old satellite companies that used to hate us, right? They've become because of the 5G crunch in the United States. We've lost half of the C-band bandwidth. So they've either got to launch a whole bunch more satellites or figure something out. So one of the big sports networks that has 4 letters, and here in the United States, we're actually started with them. We deliver. I'm involved in another company called CrewSat, which we deliver all the television to cruise ships via satellite, right? So, and we transport that stuff into our aggregation uplink centers via One Connect. So, as a result of us doing the NFL Sunday Ticket with that large sports network, they looked at us and said, "What else can you do?" Because this whole satellite crunch is A, becoming significantly more costly, and B, it's becoming more difficult to manage. So we're in negotiations to handle all of the terrestrial broadcasts for that large sports network as they transition to IP. So the next year, I see us continuing to get into that market and expand our services and our offerings back to, now that we have the satellite uplink centers, right? We're in, as part of our larger company, we have satellite uplink centers. With the piece of One Connect coming into that umbrella, we're now able to do things like originate for these people that want to do these OTT plays and deliver to any place in the world. And as our technology evolves and responds to the market, we have, we're compatible with more and more delivery, architectures. We deliver RTMP, we deliver secure RTMP, risk, we do it all. So that's what I see in the future, to offer more packaged solutions as we grow the transport business.
It sounds like really exciting times ahead, Chris, to be honest.
Could be.
Really well done to you guys for all the work you have been doing. And it's great to see you succeeding. So this is a question that we ask at the end of every podcast, and it might be quite hard, might be quite easy for you, Chris. But if you could boil it down into one word and one word only, what do you envision for the future of the broadcasting industry? And then obviously you can expand afterwards.
Change, absolute change. Like everything else going on in the world, if the industry doesn't respond to the change of consumers' viewing habits, then it's going to die. Or what's going to happen is the big players in the industry are just going to go away. I mean, I'm still old school, right? I like watching a certain show at 10 o'clock on Thursday nights and yada yada yada. Where the next generation of folks, that's nowhere near the case. They want to watch TV when they want to watch TV. So if these large players, these large content licensors don't respond to that, they're going to die. So change with the times, man.
No, I completely agree. And I think, there are the occasional outlier where I'll see something on linear TV that I will schedule to watch at 10 p.m. But again, I consume all these clips on social media. I'm always on Netflix, Amazon Prime, subscribe to loads of them. So it's definitely change. And I think we could soon see this kind of really embracing hybrid stuff, and it'll be interesting to see how that works out. So a mixture of all of those kind of avenues and all of those channels, because there's still some of us left that like watching TV, believe it or not. So just to finish on then, Chris, are there any kind of exciting projects that you've got in the pipeline at the moment that you're allowed to talk to us about? It's okay if you're not.
Well, there's that one that I was telling you about, the terrestrial broadcast for the sporting network. The other thing is, like I was hinted at earlier, we've started our umbrella company started a service called CrewSat, where we're delivering television to cruise ships all over the world. And we're looking to expand that footprint, and things were going great, and the curve of growth was absolutely phenomenal until COVID hit, right?
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, as COVID dissipates, we're finally being allowed to back on the cruise ships to do some work. So I see that, in the next 3 months that the cruise ships are going to start sailing, and then we can start once again on our world domination of television on cruise ships.
Yeah.
So that's the next project for us.
That is brilliant. Honestly, I hadn't even thought for a second how cruise ships managed to get their kind of signals and their, actually get content on their TVs.
Mm-hmm.
And you've honestly reminded me that kind of thing exists, to be honest. And it's really important, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
So, Chris, how can people get in touch with you or OneConnext if they want to get in touch and ask about anything?
Best way to do is to come to our website. There's links there, and you can learn a little bit more about what we do and how we do it. And the website is www.oneconnect.com. That's spelled ONECONNXT.com. Click on sales, or my contact information is there. And I'm always available for any type of questions or inquiries.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you very much then, Chris. That was a brilliant
Thanks
episode.
for the opportunity to spend some time with you.
No, and it's great to speak to you as well. Thank you, Chris.
Perfect. Thank you.